Your heating bill is lying to you. Not exaggerating, not rounding up, lying. Because in 1971, 30 miles from the Canadian border in northern Idaho, a man named Mike Oehler spent exactly $50 building a home and stayed warm through 33 consecutive brutal winters while his neighbors burned through cord after cord of firewood. They called him an idiot. They called the structure a hole in the ground. They laughed at the man who buried his cabin like someone who had abandoned civilization entirely. And then winter hit negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. The laughter stopped cold because Mike Oehler's buried cabin was already sitting at 52 degrees before he lit a single match. Not luck, not magic, a physical law so ancient that every major civilization ever forced to survive on the frozen edge of this earth had already discovered it independently, and we quietly, deliberately forgot. Before we go any further, have you ever tried to heat a place through winter and felt like no matter what you spent, the cold just kept winning? Drop a comment below and tell me where you live and what your heating bill looks like. Because what you're about to discover will change how you see every wall, every roof, and every dollar you have ever handed to a utility company. Here is what the modern building industry will never tell you. The house you live in right now, framed in 2x4s, wrapped in half an inch of OSB, stuffed with fiberglass batting, is fighting the cold the wrong way. It is fighting it by resisting, building a thin shell and hoping the heat stays inside. And cold laughs at that strategy every single time. When temperatures drop to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit, wind does not care about your R13 wall cavity. Wind finds every gap, every seam, every penetration, and it strips heat through convection, the same process that makes a wet shirt feel cold even on a mild day, and it never stops. Modern homes lose heat the way a paper bag loses water, slowly at first, then all at once. And the answer the industry gives you is more insulation, better windows, smarter thermostats, spray foam this, programmable that, more products, more monthly payments. The answer is never, what if you just stopped fighting the air? And here's the thing, they are counting on you not knowing. The soil beneath your feet right now, at a depth of just 6 to 10 feet, is sitting at a completely different temperature than the air above it. Not slightly different, dramatically different. In most of the continental United States, ground temperature at that depth holds between 45 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. Not in summer only, not in winter only, year-round. While the air above swings from 100 degrees in August to negative 20 degrees in January, the earth below barely moves. A swing of maybe 5 degrees across the entire calendar year. That stability is not a regional quirk, that is physics. And it is the most powerful thermal management system that has ever existed on this planet, and you are standing on top of it right now, paying a utility company to pretend it is not there. The reason rests on one ratio that the heating and cooling industry has done a remarkable job of keeping out of your awareness. Soil has approximately 2,000 times the volumetric heat capacity of air. Think carefully about what that means. 1 cubic meter of moist earth stores roughly 2 million joules of thermal energy for every degree Celsius of temperature change. 1 cubic meter of air stores about 1,200 joules. The earth is not merely better at holding heat than air, it is 2,000 times better. Think of it this way. Imagine trying to cool a room by cracking a window versus trying to cool a swimming pool the same way. You can drain the room of warmth in minutes. The pool will take days. That is the difference between heating an air-surrounded structure and wrapping your living space in the planet itself. The Earth is not insulation in the conventional sense. It is a thermal battery, one that absorbs summer warmth, stores it across months like a slow-motion reservoir, and releases it gradually through winter, peaking precisely when you need it most. Here is where the numbers become genuinely difficult to ignore. When air drops to -40 degrees Fahrenheit, the kind of cold that freezes exposed skin in under 10 minutes and stalls diesel engines, the soil 6 feet below that same ground is still sitting somewhere between 35 and 45 degrees. That is a gap of 75 to 85 degrees between the earth and the air above it. A conventional cabin at those temperatures must generate a lift of 110 degrees just to reach 70 degrees inside. An earth-sheltered structure at the same location starts at 52 degrees and needs a lift of only 18. That is 4 to 5 times less energy required, not a marginal gain, not a rounding error, a transformation in what survival actually costs. And Mike Oehler understood this not because a university told him, but because he nearly froze to death in his first Idaho winter inside a conventional above-ground cabin and decided he was never doing that again. Let's be precise about who Mike Oehler actually was, because the building industry's preferred story would have you picture him as a fringe eccentric who got lucky. He was nothing of the kind. He was a Chicago-born writer who in 1968 moved to a 40-acre parcel near Bonners Ferry, Idaho, 30 miles from the Canadian border, in terrain that delivers winter temperatures well below zero with brutal consistency. Deep snow by November, ice that does not break until April, the kind of cold where tires go flat overnight, and every house in the valley runs a furnace around the clock just to avoid freezing. His first above-ground cabin nearly killed him. He came through that first winter, understanding one thing with absolute clarity. He was fighting the wrong battle. So in 1971, for $50 in materials, he constructed his first underground home using a method he would later name PSP, post, shoring, and polyethylene. Wooden posts set in an excavated pit, braced against lateral earth pressure with timber shoring, sealed with polyethylene sheeting, then buried under several feet of native soil. One south-facing wall was left open to capture winter sunlight. His neighbors thought he had cracked under the pressure of isolation. His heating cost was nearly zero. His interior temperature never dropped below the Earth's ambient warmth. His structure never lost a battle with the wind because it never fought the wind at all. The wind moved right over the top of it and kept going, touching nothing. His book, the $50 and Up Underground House book, went through 14 printings and is still available today. He lectured in 26 states and 7 countries. Louis Theroux of the BBC visited him in 1998. His underground greenhouse, 30 miles from the Canadian border, was producing tomatoes in mid-December with no supplemental heat. The original 1971 structure was still standing when Oehler died in February 2016, at 77 years old. You do not get 14 printings from a failed experiment. If this is reshaping how you see the walls around you right now, take a second and hit like, because we are about to go much further back in history, and what comes next is going to reframe everything you thought you knew about who understood this first. Now ask the obvious question. If this approach is so effective, so ancient, so backed by physics that it simply cannot be argued with, why did we abandon it? Why did entire civilizations' worth of shelter knowledge vanish from mainstream construction? 3 reasons. And not one of them has anything to do with earth-sheltered buildings not working. The first is speed. After World War II, America needed to house millions of returning veterans and young families at industrial scale and industrial pace. Frame construction could be prefabricated, standardized, and assembled by crews in a matter of days. Excavating and earth sheltering requires site-specific work. You cannot ship a hillside. The second reason is cheap energy. In the 1950s and the 1960s, natural gas and electricity were priced so low that the energy waste of a conventional box was invisible. Nobody felt it, The numbers were simply too small to matter. The third reason, and this one should genuinely give you pause, is that the building codes, mortgage underwriting standards, and zoning regulations that calcified during the post-war era were all built around the frame house as the universal template. Earth-sheltered structures fell out in the standard. Banks would not easily finance them. Inspectors did not know how to pass them. The system did not reject them because they failed. It rejected them because they did not fit the production model. Here is the hidden cost. The cheap energy ended. Heating bills doubled and then tripled across a single generation. But the template did not change. The industry kept selling the same thin-shelled, wind-exposed box at higher prices and told you the solution was a smarter thermostat. The timeline is not subtle. Residential heating costs began their sustained climb precisely as earth-sheltered construction disappeared from the mainstream option set. That failure is not yours. You were handed the wrong tool and told it was the only one available. You were not failing to stay warm. You were fighting an unwinnable battle with the wrong weapon, while the right weapon was 6 feet beneath your feet the entire time. The history reaches back further than Mike Oehler by several thousand years, and it arrives from cultures that had absolutely no contact with one another, which means every single one of them figured this out independently. That is not coincidence. That is convergent engineering. That is the signature of a principle so physically correct that every civilization facing extreme cold eventually discovered it. The interior, Salish peoples of British Columbia, the Nalaka Pamuks, the Sequepiam Sea, the Statium Sea, built circular earth-sheltered winter structures called kekuli. These were pits dug 1 to 1.5 meters into the earth, roofed with poles, pine needles, and packed soil, entered through a smoke hole at the top by ladder. The archaeological site at Keatley Creek near Lillooet, British Columbia, contains over 115 pit house depressions, the largest spanning 21 meters across. They were occupied continuously from roughly 6,000 years before the Common Era. These structures sustained communities of 1,000 people through winters that regularly hit negative 42 degrees Celsius, not surviving those winters, raising families in them, storing food, practicing ceremony, sustaining a complete civilization inside pits that the modern world would look at and call primitive. The modern world would be wrong. In 1021 CE, a date precisely confirmed by radiocarbon dating, Norse settlers at L'Anse aux Meadows in Newfoundland built 8 turf structures with walls up to 2 meters thick. Dual courses of dense sod bricks with gravel cores were layered like a thermal flywheel against the North Atlantic wind and cold. They positioned livestock stalls directly adjacent to sleeping quarters so that animal body heat joined the Earth's stored thermal mass in warming the space. Icelandic turf houses, built on this exact same principle, remained in continuous human habitation until 1947. 1,000 years of daily proof. On the American Great Plains in the 1880s, homesteaders cut thick sod bricks from prairie grassland and stacked them into walls 2 to 3 feet wide. The schoolchildren's blizzard of January 12, 1888, killed 235 people across the open plains when temperatures collapsed by 50 degrees in the span of a few hours. The survivors were overwhelmingly the families inside soddies and dugouts, the structures the earth itself was holding. The ones in conventional above-ground frame buildings were the ones who did not come home. And today, right now, Haimo Korth, still alive and still living in Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, 150 miles above the Arctic Circle, builds his cabins from spruce timber with sod-roofed tops, positioned deliberately at the bases of hills, sheltered by terrain and tree lines. At negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit and negative 60 degrees Fahrenheit, his sod-roofed cabins remain livable on modest wood heat. Discovery Channel documented his family's life across 4 seasons of The Last Alaskans. The principle that kept Kekuli residents warm 6,000 years ago is keeping Haimo Korth's family alive right now. It has always been the same principle. So what do you actually do with this? 3 options, starting with the one you can begin this week. Option 1, earth berming on any existing structure. You do not need to bury a whole building. Pile compacted soil against the north, east, and west exterior walls, leaving only the south face open to light and direct weather. 2 feet of packed earth against an exterior wall eliminates convective wind-driven heat loss on that face completely. No heat escapes through convection when there is no air moving against the surface. The key is drainage. Run a perforated pipe at the base of the berm before you backfill, so water has somewhere to go and does not migrate through the wall. Use gravel against the wall itself, then native soil over the top. Bank it at a slope, plant it with ground cover or low shrubs, and from the street it looks like a landscaped hillside. If you own your property and have any grade or slope nearby, this is achievable with basic earth moving and one weekend. You are not renovating your home. You are finally letting the planet help you. Option 2. New construction using the PSP method. Oehler documented, which requires nothing exotic: dimensional lumber, polyethylene sheeting, drainage aggregate, and backfill. His book remains in print and covers site selection, waterproofing, natural lighting through south-facing glazing and skylights, cross-ventilation, and moisture management with the specificity of someone who lived inside the system for 3 full decades. The key variables he identified are: choose a south-facing slope, so gravity drains water away from the structure. Use at least 6 inches of gravel between the polyethylene and the soil, and keep your south wall as open to glass as local climate allows for passive solar gain. That is the entire system. No lab, no factory, no subscription. Option 3 costs you nothing today. Go outside tomorrow morning at first light and observe where the frost is heaviest. Cold air is denser than warm air. It flows downhill and pools in low spots the way water does, which is why valley floors frost first and mid-slope positions stay measurably warmer. Every earth shelter builder in recorded history, from the Salish Kekuli architects to Mike Oehler in Idaho, chose elevated south-facing terrain for exactly this reason. Position and orientation are free decisions. They cost nothing but attention, and understanding them is the beginning of building the way the earth has always intended. Mike Oehler was not a madman. He was not a fringe eccentric living outside the bounds of reason. He was a man who paid attention to the physics instead of the sales pitch, built the structure that physics demanded, and stayed warm for 33 years, while his neighbors paid steadily rising fuel bills for the privilege of fighting an unwinnable war against the open air. Call him unconventional if the story is easier to dismiss that way. He was warm. His structure outlived him. His book is still in print. The knowledge was not lost. It was buried, and not in the ground where it belongs. It was buried in the margins of building culture, far enough from the marketplace that nobody could package it and charge you monthly for it. We are here to dig it back up. If you want more investigations into the survival wisdom and building knowledge that the modern world quietly set aside, subscribe and join us, because we are just getting started. And tell us in the comments, what piece of forgotten knowledge do you want us to chase down next?